Hello and welcome to episode 194 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Weekly Podcast. I'm Mike Sollosi, and today we're recording in the evening, but we will definitely finish before the morning. We're talking about Until Dawn, the choice-based action-adventure sorta RPG, sorta visual novel from 2015. And to join me on this discussion, I am accompanied by Peter Triezenberg.
Hi, I'm Peter Triezenberg. You may know me as one of the news people on the site. And can we all just collectively agree that Rami Malek should have won his Oscar for this instead? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the less we talk about the movie Rami Malek starred in, the better, because that was a sort of feel-good movie that was okay to enjoy, but not okay to win so many Oscars.
Glares at Bryan Singer.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer Rami Malek, be remembered for Until Dawn and Mr. Robot than for Bohemian Rhapsody. But
obviously, we're all missing his real great appearance in Night at the Museum.
Oh yeah, okay, I definitely forgot about that.
we all wish we did a little bit.
I think of that movie and I feel sad for Ben Stiller's career and Robin Williams' life mostly.
Yeah, no, exactly, 100%.
But, okay, back to what we're supposed to be talking about. Peter, you and I just can't avoid talking about movies on these podcasts. I mean,
I'm sorry, it comes with the territory.
Yeah, that's the last episode we were on together. We talked about movies for a full hour 20, but I think that was by design. Anyway, back to Until Dawn. Speaking of movies, Until Dawn is again, choice-based horror visual novel thriller with some action that is very much rooted in movies. This is basically a slasher horror movie in video game form, and it marketed itself as that and was pretty successful. I mean, when this game came out in 2015, it was a pretty big hit. Everyone and their friend was streaming it or watching it on a stream, and Twitch streaming is quite huge today, and maybe wasn't as huge in 2015. And I think that this Until Dawn's window of popularity was important to Twitch.
Yeah, no, I could agree with that. I mean, my first exposure to the game was even a Let's Play live stream at I think it was Markiplier's, pretty sure. But that that was a really interesting way to kind of engage with the game with as people were people were chiming in, trying to make decisions and trying to affect the way things played out. I thought it was kind of fascinating in that little bubble of time when the game first came out. In a lot of ways, isn't it kind of feels like Until Dawn is like a Quantic Dream game done right. Is that fair to say?
Maybe. I felt like it was a Telltale game with a much larger budget.
That also works.
Because R.I.P. All right, pour one out for Telltale Games, which I was only a casual fan of Telltale, but I enjoyed several of the ones I played. But anyway, Telltale also has these timed decisions to be made. Or I should say, decisions that sometimes you're timed and are urgent, and sometimes are less urgent. But Until Dawn has a much bigger budget. It was a PS4 exclusive that had it seemed to have a lot of Sony support. Like, Sony advertised it a lot, and it felt like an expensive game when I was playing it.
Oh, they are flexing so hard in this game. Like, there's they got, aside from having the aforementioned Rami Malek, Hayden Panettiere's in it, Peter Stormare. They have some big name actors. Well, I mean, big name. They have some good actors in here, and the motion capture technology they've got.
Yeah, these
pretty cutting edge for the time.
Yeah, these actors are emoting. Like, it's they're clearly video game characters. I don't think there's a ton.
There's a bit of uncanny going
maybe
on.
A little uncanny valley, but I was basically comfortable with it. Like these people look like video game people, but it's expensive, good-looking video game people.
Yeah, exactly. And the environments, you have fairly limited interaction with the environments. A lot of the game is fairly linear, I would say, but the backdrops are beautiful. Like, it is a really pretty looking game in a lot of spots. The death animations, when they do play out, are very grisly and very lovingly rendered.
Yeah, and the game is pathed. It's not really open world ever. But moving through the game, everything looks gorgeous. Everything's very shadowy. Dark and light are sort of important in this game. And I just thought it was a good-looking game, but not real enough to be unsettling, but there's plenty of blood to make this game unsettling. It's unsettling on
Oh
its
yeah.
own for other reasons. But we're dancing. I'm dancing around a little bit. I wasn't able to finish this game for technical reasons. I got through the prologue and most of Chapter 1 pretty cleanly, but then I started running into errors on my PS4 where it was either unable to finish the install or unable to read the disk. And I tried resetting it and deleting my data and restoring it multiple times, but I kept running into this incomplete install data error, and I was unable to make it past Chapter 1, which is sad because I was starting to get invested in really enjoying the game. I don't have a huge background with horror games or horror movies, but there's a few that I really love, like Evil Dead 2 and Cabin in the Woods and the Scream series, which I think does not make me a horror enthusiast, but definitely puts me in the right headspace for this kind of game.
Oh, definitely.
Because this game is definitely living in horror tropes and in horror film tradition, especially slasher horror, which is my favorite kind in the movie world.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, it kind of cribs from a lot of different horror movie influences. Like there's a lot of slasher film tropes, Cabin in the Woods, Kent type teenagers stranded alone type stuff. There's a bit of supernatural stuff that comes into play later.
A lot. I mean, the Evil Dead goes into supernatural stuff. Also, but I thought
right.
that I didn't finish the game, but I did watch some videos, so I would be familiar with every point of the game, and I don't care about spoilers most of the time, so I was okay doing some side research, and it might go into zombie movie territory a little bit towards the end.
It kind of does, and in fact, the game's kind of genre savvy about it. There's a bit where, okay, I guess full tilt. Once the monsters start showing up, a character gets bitten.
Right.
And a major decision point is like once they're freaking out, wondering what they have to do about that. Turns out it's not infectious.
Yeah, but it feels like these characters have seen zombie movies before, so they're worried if the bite is infectious or not.
Exactly.
Is she going to turn into a monster or not? And that's the decision you have to make. And
it's fairly clever writing.
Yeah, and I should mention while we're talking about spoilers, that we will spoil the hell out of this game throughout this podcast, probably with little warning before. So
if you have a chance to play Until Dawn and you haven't yet, and you're listening to this podcast, just turn it off, go play it. It's actually not that long, honestly.
Or watch a stream or watch a let's play, because the game is allegedly 9 to 10 hours, and it was very, very widely streamed. I guess through the past 4 years, so it should not be difficult to find a stream if you're interested. Did RPG Fan do one of these? I'm not positive.
I don't actually know. I'm gonna look this up right now. Actually,
that's worth looking up, because I would, if we have a chance to plug our video team, I would happily do so. And again, this game is ideal for streaming because there are decision points, some of which are probably trivial, like going left or right or following.
Oh, hey. Rob reviewed Until Dawn for us. Interesting.
Oh, cool. So we did. So at least we covered it a little bit. That's a good start. But the old joke about Telltale games is that you make a lot of decisions along the way, but you sort of always end in the same place. This game, I think the decisions feel meaningful, even if you don't know what the outcome of the decision is. Like if your decision is to follow, this is from the prologue, so ultimately it was trivial. Like, do you follow the noise that you heard, or do you follow the footsteps that you found? It would going left or going right. That you don't know what the outcome of this is. There's no hints that will that feel like one leads to death, one leads to safety. But very often these decisions will be death versus safety.
Yeah, a lot of the some of the events are pretty fixed, like that. The beginning is a pretty
the prologue.
The story.
The prologue is important details, but I don't think the decisions you make in the prologue ever matter.
But it gives you a good show of it does give you a good indicator of what's to come, and it does affect a small detail at the very end. But it's nothing major, just a small detail. But it shows they're paying attention. I should mention, it looks like we actually did stream Until Dawn.
Excellent.
Back in April, Kat streamed it on our Twitch channel.
April of this year?
April of this year, yeah. It was
Okay.
actually pretty recent. So if you guys want to go check that out, definitely do so.
Right. I don't watch a lot of Twitch streams, but you should be able to find that in RPG Fans' twitch.tv page archives somewhere. So April 2019, Cat was the streamer for that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's excellent. Please, if listeners, if you are interested in watching a stream of this, use RPG Fans stream.
But yeah, Until Dawn cribs a lot from it. Cribs a lot from Evil Dead, a little bit of Saw, a little bit of Jason Voorhees. There's a major part. There's a major part where like a character sets up like a series of death traps with televisions and recordings designed to like give instructions to the player. That feels very lifted from Jigsaw's playbook. It even gets a little bit into the Descent later on with the system of caves and the Wendigo monsters.
Right. And when I first learned that the monster in this game is the Wendigo, that reminded me of the Marvel Comics Wendigo, which is basically just a Yeti of some kind, and the Wendigo monster from the X-Men arcade game, who just shouts his name like a Pokemon.
I remember that. There's also a pretty good Robert Carlyle Guy Pearce movie called Ravenous that is that's about Wendigos that is worth checking out if you want to see one of my favorite actors just going completely ham.
Welcome to die. But so that was my first thought when I heard Wendigo. But in this game, Wendigo is okay. I think also historically, it's a creature from certain Native American folklores, and in this game, a Wendigo is a spirit that takes over someone's body and turns them into a monster after they've consumed human flesh.
Yep.
So there's some cannibal horror, some zombie-like horror, and some monster chasing you in the dark wilderness horror all going on in this game. But but the Wendigo stuff is mostly in the second half. Like the first half is a psycho pursuing people in this house, and then in the second half it takes a supernatural turn, and you're being hunted down by Wendigos.
Mm-hmm. Yep, but definitely, if there's a certain horror movie trope that pushes your buttons, you're probably going to find it. The game, even early on, it kind of does the Silent Hill Shattered Memories. The game plays you as much as you play it thing, where you have to like Peter Stormare plays like a therapist, the world's worst therapist, I should mention, who will probe you, the player, to answer questions, to give your worst fears, which will affect the game in subtle ways, like modifying the lighting in certain scenes, to not so subtle ways, like which Halloween mask jumps out at you during a jump scare.
Right, but okay, we're going to rewind it back a little bit. I want to talk about the prologue in Chapter 1 and then the characters of the game before we get into the more plot-heavy points. In the prologue, there are 10 people in a cabin, but you don't see all of them. I think you only see maybe 7 or 8 of them at first. And 2 of them are Beth and Hannah, who are twin girls. And 4 or 5 of the other people decide to play a prank on Hannah. Hannah has a crush on this guy named Mike, but Mike is dating one of the other people in the lodge, and they trick her into meeting Mike in his bedroom, and she thinks she's going to be there to make out with Mike, so she takes off her shirt, and then everyone jumps out of the closet or from under the bed, surprising her, completely humiliating Hannah. So Hannah sprints out of the house, weeping, and her twin sister Beth chases after her. And this goes extremely poorly.
To say the least. Both girls end up falling off a cliff.
Yeah, both girls end up are being chased by something, and they fall off a cliff. And Beth takes a horrible blow to her back. Like, you can see her back crack over a rock. It's that's maybe the first really gruesome moment of the game.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then in Chapter 1, you're mostly controlling a girl named Sam, but or at least at the beginning you are. But you sort of take turns controlling almost all 8 of the other lodge goers.
Yep, you'll be playing as all of them at least once.
Yes, but at least you start out as Sam, and these eight people. One of them, Josh, is the older brother of the two twins, and basically the twins went missing after the events of the prank on Hannah. And they're presumed dead. And Josh, their older brother, was obviously pretty broken up about it, but he decided to invite all of the same 7 other people to this lodge to sort of put it behind them, which is the first ridiculous decision anyone makes in this game. Like, why on earth would you go back to the lodge where 2 of your friends died? Why? Come on, man.
They're teenagers. They're not the most forward-thinking people on the planet.
Okay, agreed, but still, this is not like if I was one of those 7 other people, I would decline this invitation 10 times out of 10. No, I don't want to go to the terrifying horror lodge where 2 of my cute friends died.
Well, they
No,
don't know it's a terrifying horror lodge yet. They don't. I think the thing of it is that we know what happens to Hannah and Beth, but they only know that they went missing, and that it was maybe their fault. So it was 100% their fault. So
yeah, I mean, Josh seems to blame himself because he was not involved in the prank. He was passed out. Drunk on a chair. In fact, you can try to wake him up as Beth in the prologue chapter, but he stays asleep. So, and I'm not sure if all 7 of the people jumped out on Hannah. I think
no, a couple of them are new. A couple of them are newcomers. Like people are broken up, paired off with new. Matt is the Emily, the girlfriend's new boy toy.
Yeah, Matt wasn't. Mike was definitely there. Matt was not. And
I think Jessica is Mike's new. Squeeze too.
I thought Jessica was there.
I don't remember honestly. I know Emily was. I know Sam was. I know Chris was, and Ashley was.
Yeah, I don't remember because Chris is the nerdy guy. I remember him from the first chapter.
Ashley and Emily were definitely there because I think it was Emily's idea, and Ashley is kind of like the groupie.
Right. Okay. I'm checking a list now. Mike, Emily, Jessica, Matt, and Ashley were the ones that played the prank.
Okay.
And it looks like Chris was not there, and Sam was sort of like trying to talk them out of the prank, and was a few rooms over when they humiliated Hannah. So so most of them were involved in this prank, but it's but Josh was passed out in a different part of the house.
Okay.
And so this is the first anniversary of his sister's disappearance, and Josh invites everyone back to the lodge. And in Chapter 1, you have you're controlling Sam at the beginning, and you're sort of learning the mechanics of the game again a little bit. You examine some items, you take this path or that path. You meet a squirrel.
Don't shoot the animals.
Yeah. And there's a part where you sort of like learn the gun mechanics of the game. And you shoot some targets, and you have the option to shoot a squirrel or not. And believe it or not, something as trivial as shooting the squirrel or not shooting the squirrel matters later.
Yeah, they really do a good. That's the game introduces it brings up the concept of the butterfly effect, the idea that a small inconsequential decision will eventually have momentous consequences later on. And for the most part, they actually play very well on that concept. Every so often, whenever you make a major decision, little butterflies will fly across the screen, and it's an indication that something is either going to pay off later or you're seeing the repercussions of that event.
And as we mentioned before, there's going to be several decisions that you make throughout the game, and they, even small ones, may have effects later. It's not always predictable and might even feel semi-random, but the outcome of the game is totally dependent on these decisions that you make, and there are routes where all 8 people can survive, and routes where all 8 people can die. And but again, we mentioned that the first half is sort of teens versus a psychopath, and the second half is teens versus Wendigo. But let's focus on the psychopath half first.
Okay.
The people get separated, and 3 of them. Chris, Ashley, and Josh use a sort of a Ouija board kind of thing to try and see if they can contact Hannah or Beth, and
check off another bucket on the. This is really quite insensitive, you guys. List.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. It's just really, why are you doing this? This is not good decision making. And
the one thing they're not even 100% sure they're dead. Secondly,
right.
Seriously, he's grieving. Come on.
Yeah, and Josh is one of the people there using the spirit board, and that ends with all 3 being chained up, and Josh, the one who was the older brother of the twins, getting sawed in half. But I think that's an unavoidable scene.
You can't change that. Nope. Even if you try to kill Ashley during that scene, the saw is predetermined. That will affect something later on. In terms of how Ashley responds to Chris.
Yeah, but Josh is the one who's gruesomely cut in half every time.
Yeah, that is unavoidable.
Yeah. But basically, through there's more encounters with the psycho. There's scenes where I think Matt
Sam
and
gets
Sam.
chased with Sam gets
Sam
chased with the world's most gravity resistant towel.
Yeah, Sam is. That's a good brand of towel. Maybe the towel has like a magnetic clasp on the back or something. I don't know how that stays on. But Matt and Sam are chased separately by the Psycho. There are multiple death trap scenarios similar to the Saw movies, guided by televisions and other hidden messages, like you mentioned before. But then, listener, you might remember that there's a route where all 8 people survive. So how does Josh survive if he is always cut in half? It's because that was faked. Josh is the Psycho. He faked his death, and this was basically an extremely elaborate prank to punish the other people for possibly causing the death of his sisters. That's the first twist of the game.
Yeah, no, and it's a pretty big one. Josh is the character played by Rami Malek, who's of course he's a big name actor now. He's won an Academy Award. He's been in a lot of really good television shows, and movies. And he kind of goes off the rails in this game a bit, and it's kind of glorious to behold.
Yeah, I think that Sam maybe has the most dialogue in the first half of the game.
No, Sam is the final girl, 100%.
Yeah, but Josh has maybe the most outsized role in the middle because he's really the star of the first big twist of the game. But Josh did not anticipate the presence of these supernatural wendigos on the mountain, and that sort of takes center stage in the second half of the game. So early on, it's people are being chased by this psycho murderer. The player decisions to for self-preservation or even trying to sacrifice other characters will matter later. But the ultimate stakes in the first third of the game are a little moot because Josh is not intending to kill anyone.
No, Josh is really there. His main goal is just to scare people, and which is why once he finds out early on in the game, Jess gets nabbed by one of the monsters, and can wind up dead depending on how you treated her. But Josh is surprised to hear that because that wasn't part of his plan, and that's the first indication to the characters that okay, something else is going on up here.
Yeah, it's not only Josh's elaborate prank. It's and again we'll get into the Wendigo stuff in a second, but let's talk about all of the characters together now. Not the twins, but of the other 8 main characters, do you think Rami's, or I should say Josh, is the best performance, or do you have a favorite character other than Josh?
I think Josh, Mike, and Sam, Hayden Panettiere, probably get the most to work with. In terms of the fact that they are clearly Mike has kind of got the Bruce Campbell jawline thing going. I feel like he's kind of meant to be that archetype in the show, or even though he's kind of a douche nozzle, he's still kind of the quote unquote leading man, so to speak. He tries to take charge. He probably makes the most forward momentum in the story. He has this whole side segment in an abandoned sanatorium that's also on the mountain. Which, by the way, this mountain is a nesting ground for horror movie cliches.
It has dense forests and an abandoned mine and an abandoned sanatorium, which mental hospital, old world mental hospital, multiple cabins and lodges. It's almost like a semi-abandoned city network.
No kidding.
is here. Again, rife for different movie tropes and horror tropes to take place. So do you think that Mike has sort of the best performance?
I think he does a pretty good job with what he's given. Hayden also does a really good job. She
plays Sam, and I think she had maybe the most player control in the first half of the game. But again, this is me spitballing a little bit since I didn't play past chapter 1.
You play as her and Chris quite a bit in the early portion. Her, Chris, and Ashley very much in the early portions.
I liked Ashley. Ashley seemed like a less pure Sam. Like she's nice and she tries, and I think Chris has a thing for her. But
Chris has a thing for her. Ashley has. I think she's kind of the groupie. Like she's part of the group and she likes and she's nice, but she's also played a pretty big part in the in ganging up on Hannah, so she feels really guilty about that.
Yeah, I think she's a bit of a follower, and maybe got sort of caught up in the prank on Hannah. She definitely was around for that prank.
Yeah.
But she probably blames herself as a little bit because she's not quite as mean as Jessica or Emily. Seem a little bit more mean-spirited than Ashley. But
I like Chris overall. I like her, Chris, the nerdy guy who likes her. I really like him. Although you can play him as a complete jerk.
Yeah, one of the scenes I saw, I think it takes place in chapter 2 or 3, is like Chris and Ashley are being chased, and like Chris can sort of like cover for Ashley or just be selfish and try to save himself.
Yeah,
and later when they're being hunted down by wendigos, Ashley gets to a cabin before Chris, and if Chris sort of left threw Ashley under the bus earlier, she'll lock the door on him.
Yep,
and he'll get straight up murdered. Like that's the kind of unforeseeable decision making I like in this game. It's like, if you didn't cover for Ashley early in the game, Ashley will sell you out and watch you die later in the game. That's what I'm here for.
She has a few different reactions to Chris's death, depending on how many of those interactions you chose to take the low road on, and it's actually pretty great. Like they really did think of everything.
Yeah, that's great. Like that's the kind of variance in scenario that I want in a choice-based game like this, and again makes this game feel more elaborate and expensive than a Telltale game, because Telltale games will have different scenarios, but won't. But I don't know, because the visuals aren't at the level of this game. Like it feels like it would just be a dialogue difference in a Telltale game, where here it feels like really major consequences and really subtle differences in reaction at the same time.
Yeah, it feels like the Telltale brand fully realized. Like, what if instead of deciding to churn out the same game, which ultimately did lead to the downfall of the studio in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Telltale overextended and overestimated how some of their popular properties would do.
Yeah, they made a lot of expensive brand deals and didn't return on an investment.
Yeah, exactly. And but Until Dawn, I don't know how successful it was financially for Sony or Supermassive, but it felt like it was a game of a moment that was expensive and cool and had more meaningful decisions than a Telltale game. Which again, I keep bringing you back to that example because Telltale is sort of my benchmark or my my control group for a decision-based game like this.
It set the standard for a long time. Going back to the characters a bit, though,
right?
We also have Emily and Matt. Who Emily is Mike's ex-girlfriend, the one he was with at the time of the tragedy, and Matt is her new boyfriend. And the game has a massive hate boner for both of them, and I don't really understand it.
I think that Emily and Jessica are both sort of portrayed as sort of mean-spirited, and they're really unfair to Emily, especially.
Emily has the cruelest Wendigo death. Every character has a unique death animation for if they get caught by a Wendigo, and hers is by far the worst. She gets her eyes gouged out.
Oh, gross. Okay.
Yeah, it's nasty. But she also has a couple unique situations where she has another unique situation where she can get killed. Matt has a whopping total of 3 unique death animations, including 2 scenarios that are just bad ends for him. And I don't really understand it because other than just kind of being Emily's side piece, I don't really get what he did to deserve this much anguish.
I think he was. Well, I mean, he was in the room when they did the prank on Hannah.
Maybe,
but I mean that doesn't mean he should have it worse than everyone else that was there in the room.
I need to talk about this is the decision because he has easily the worst death animation in the whole game.
Oh God, so worse than Emily's eye gouging.
It's worse than Emily's eye gouging. So fair warning, graphic content descriptor. There's a decision point around the middle of the game where you have Emily and Matt go to radio for help. Smart decision.
A rare smart decision in a game or story like this.
Yes, yeah, 100%. But they go. The fire watchtower they're in starts collapsing, and Emily is dangling above a precipice. You have to choose whether to go save her or to save yourself. And in this specific instance, it actually is the correct decision to try to save yourself if you want Matt to live. Because if you go to save Emily, not only does she still fall because there's a section where you play as her later, Matt is now stuck in a dead end path where he is grabbed by one of the monsters and impaled through his jaw on a meat hook. And you get this really long close-up of his mouth filling with blood and his eyes rolling in the back of his skull. And it is the most gruesome death. And I'm just like, but it's in the path where you do what you feel probably would have been the right thing. It's not the right decision, but you might not know that. So it feels like he gets punished for trying to save his girlfriend. And I'm like, why? What did Matt do to you guys? So yeah,
if anything, the people I'm sort of blaming for the people who I think deserve it the most, even though no one deserves it, of course, probably Emily, Jessica, or Mike are the ones that seem to be the cruelest in dealing with Hannah at the beginning of the game. But I guess that sounds like Matt has the worst death animation, because I only looked up a couple sort of death scenarios, and I didn't come across that one, and it seems quite gruesome compared to the others.
It's very gruesome, and the other ones I don't think even come close to that. There's a lot of them. The other guys get pretty clear cut decapitations.
Mm-hmm.
Matt can get the meat hook ending, fall off a cliff and get his head crushed, or if a Wendigo catches him, he has his own unique death animation for that, and it's like, I don't know.
And you didn't tell me this exactly, so I might be wrong, but I think I saw you mention on social media that you did get the good ending playing it this time, at least you got an ending where all 8 survived.
I did. I had to reload it once though, because I made a boneheaded decision near the very end and got Jessica killed.
So, all right, but humor me for a second. Is it extremely narrow? Like, do you have to make a bunch of decisions go a certain way, like 90% of decisions very specifically, or is it a little bit more open-ended than that?
It's a little more open-ended. A couple of them are pretty clear-cut. Anytime the game has a mechanic where you have to hold the controller still. Because the PS4 motion, so it uses the PS4's little motion sensor, and those are usually for segments where you're hiding from one of the Wendigos. If you fail any of those usually result in a character death, and those are the majority of those like really sudden deaths. As far as decisions go, we have be nice to Ashley for Chris, don't save Emily for Matt. I don't think Mike and Sam can actually die until the very end. I'm pretty sure because I don't think that you can get to the end without both of them. So they pretty much have plot armor until that last sequence. Even though some of their segments are very tense. And then the other one I'm trying to think if there's any other decision-based ones that can kill you. I don't think there are.
I have not done deep research into how to get the best ending in this game.
The bad decision I made was there's a point where you can hide or you can run, and if you keep running, the monster catches up to you. That was what happened on my playthrough. Other than that, though, I think most of the other ones are pretty much just those quick time event sequences. If you fail one of those, it's going to result in somebody getting killed.
Right. And the quick time events are usually either just pressing a button within a certain time window, or like aiming over a reticule, like shooting a target within a certain time window.
Yep. Or not moving the controller when it tells you not to move it.
Right. I did do a couple of those, but they were low stakes versions when you were basically learning the mechanics of the game. In
the high stakes versions are hard, man. The controller vibrates. There's a little heartbeat sound effect coming from the controller, and like at the very end, like the monster's like all up in the camera, like snarling. Like
that can be scary.
If you're prone to jump scares, it really does put you in the mode there for sure.
Let's see. We've talked about most of the characters. Josh, Chris, Matt, Mike, then Ashley, Jessica, Emily, Sam. Let's go back to the twins. And we mentioned at the beginning of near the beginning of this episode that Wendigos are sort of hunting the people after the cat's out of the bag and Josh reveals his prank. And we learned that Wendigos are monsters monsters that were formerly human, but became possessed by a spirit and then transformed into monsters after they ate human flesh. And there's I think in the early chapters you can find like old news articles and a diary about several miners that got trapped in the nearby mine, or the mine nearby the lodge, and many of them turned into wendigos because they had to resort to cannibalism to survive. And then after they're rescued, they start slowly turning into wendigos. And some of the wendigos on the mountain were those former miners. And there's a mysterious guy who's been hunting wendigos in the mountain for probably decades. Tracks down several of the wendigos but is unable to kill them. So
he traps them instead.
So he traps them and locks them in the cells of this former mental hospital or sanatorium. And later in the game, when you're going through the sanatorium, some of the wendigos get out, and that's a problem. But maybe the most important wendigo of all is Josh's little sister Hannah.
Yep, and that one you can kind of you can see that one coming. Although I love the way they do the reveal; it's pretty great. You have to go off a little beaten path to find Hannah's journal at one point, and then there are a few clues later on while you're in the caves. You find Beth's grave and a few other indicators, but so then you discover that Beth died, Hannah was injured, and after weeks of starvation, got desperate and dug up the sister and did the cannibalism and slowly over time mutated into one of these monsters. And she's the main one that's chasing you.
Yeah, I mean, gruesome enough that she had I think she was injured in a cave or something, and her sister Beth died upon that impact, probably from the gruesome back blow that we see her take in the prologue. And so Hannah, to survive, eats the corpse of her sister.
Yep.
So she didn't. I don't think she had to kill Beth. Beth was already dead from the fall.
Yeah, Beth was already dead. She dug up the grave.
Weird.
They stayed.
Okay, that is rough.
She made a makeshift grave for Beth that you find, but had dug it up to survive. And you find like scratch marks on the walls and stuff. And actually, if you find the information, in order to find those clues, you have to find those clues about Hannah to actually get there's an extra ending scene you can get, and it affects what happens to Josh at the end. That's another one bit where I had to reload a save because the butterfly effect that pops up if you walk past the diary just tells you missed a vital clue. And I'm just like, well, shoot.
Yeah.
I need to know what that is.
When you learn about what wendigos are, that makes the game take a more supernatural route and less, Psycho in the cabin route. And learning that one of the wendigos, or perhaps the leader of the wendigos, is Hannah, makes that supernatural enemy take a more come from a more emotional place.
Yeah, it's fairly effective.
Yeah, and you can really feel the guilt and despair of the survivors in the scenes where they're being chased by Hannah or know what's happened to Hannah, and it's a good turn. I think that the way it's set up, the twist feels earned and feels meaningful, at least. But again, I didn't get to experience it for myself, and I'm still a little bit mad at myself that was the case.
Yeah, I wonder if you just, because I bought the game months ago and installed it and then didn't touch it, so maybe my PS4 just had enough time to simmer. I don't know how this works.
I don't know. I know I installed it. I installed it weeks ago, and then I ran into the error. When I tried playing it.
You have to lightly saute the disc in herbs and prepare it on low heat.
Or, I don't know. Maybe I gotta put it in and take it out and blow on it a little bit and then put it in again. I really don't know what I was doing wrong. And
we're playing with power.
Yeah, I did search around a little bit, and some people were experiencing similar errors that I got, but I think some of them deleted all the data and restarted the machine and put it back in, and it worked. But some of them were still having problems beyond that. And then I didn't go too deep into the jungle of forum threads and Reddit posts that were, that were discussing that. But But it was frustrating that I was unable to play it because I was definitely intrigued at the beginning, and the more I read about this, I'm like, man, this seems like a really good horror game and a really good choice-based game,
Yeah.
and I can see why so many people were excited by it.
Yeah, I hope you
Um,
get it working sometime because even though like I said, I'd watched a Let's Play ages ago, so I did kind of know what was going to happen. The experience of playing it is quite enjoyable. Do we want to actually before we move on? We didn't talk about totems yet. Do we want to touch on that gameplay mechanic real quick?
Sure, yeah. You find these items called totems lying around. They're mostly easy to see. I mean, I only got to
Yeah,
find two in my playing, but they were basically just
a couple of
lying
them
in.
are pretty deviously hidden.
Okay, okay, yeah. The ones I saw were in plain sight. But when you examine a totem, you get a brief scene that I feels like a scene from the future, or maybe an outcome to try and avoid.
Yeah, so there are five categories of totems, and there are five totems in each category. It's actually pretty clearly delineated. And if you miss one, they're all shown in chronological order. So if you miss one and get one later, it'll show you the blank gap where it was. So it actually makes hunting down and finding them again. After you beat it once, you can skip around chapters. It makes getting those collectibles a lot easier. Okay, so you can find totems that'll show the death of the character you're currently playing as, that show the death of another character, that show dangerous events that might happen, usually like quick time events. Totems that offer guidance, like they'll show you where to go. One of those is like if you want to find Hannah's journal, for example. If you find the right guidance totem, it shows you a picture of a water wheel, and that's where you're supposed to look. And then there's fortune totems, which basically they make certain events go by a little easier, or offer basically reprieves. I think they're kind of designed to like make some of those bad outcomes easier to avoid. But all of them show you a brief little image of the future, and you kind of have to go from there to remember the situation that it's going to place yourself in. I think it's a really interesting mechanic. And also, as you collect them, you get a little narrated backstory you collect snippets of that tells you what happened to the miners, and what the stranger has been doing in his spare time.
Right, and the stranger is the guy that's been hunting down wendigos for years.
Yeah, flamethrower guy.
Right. For a while, I was again. This is me watching videos and reading about the game. I was accidentally conflating the stranger and the psycho because
Yeah.
because they referred to the masked Josh running his prank as the psycho, and this guy as the hunting down wendigos as the stranger. And it's like there's a stranger and a psycho and wendigos, and oh boy, it's a lot going on.
It's easy to conflate the two, yeah. And honestly, they think that the stranger's responsible for all this at first.
Yes,
'Cause, I mean,
which is not the craziest idea, honestly. Like,
No,
it's understandable from their perspective.
there's a Josh even. I think Josh even he makes a lot of fake clues to make you think it is the stranger because he wants to create an alibi for himself. So he prints off fake newspapers, fake
Yeah,
wanted posters.
and he fakes his own death because he has a deep knowledge of special effects or something.
Yeah, which is, I mean, okay, it's flimsy, but whatever. I'm not going to overthink the logic of that too much. But yeah, overall, like mechanically wise, there are a lot of items to collect that you can examine. They offer clues as to what's going on. Some of them are pretty basic stuff, like just context for more events. You find family photos of Hannah, Beth, and Josh. And then some of them are really, really quite important ones that offer more info on the mining accident or
right.
the history of the sanatorium, or a videotape that shows a dude turning into a wendigo.
Yeah, and a lot of those are sort of how they introduce the Wendigo myth. It's like because I remember I've read some stuff about the miners that you're able to find along the way. It's they don't hit you with that information like a hammer. They're reasonably environmental and gradual about that.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's handled fairly well as far as these things go. Definitely kind of a creeping sense of dread as you move along. Also, the game absolutely loves to make you reach it's the Silent Hill 2 thing where you have to reach your hand into a dark hole and you don't know what's going to happen. Like, there's a jump scare or something coming. You're just kind of waiting for it. There are a couple times I yelled at my TV because I was just like, I know this is happening. Just get it over with.
Yeah, so I think that Until Dawn executes on its ideas pretty successfully. I mean, we're talking about a lot of specific moments and specific lore that are, I think, pretty interesting within the game. But you mentioned that you did get all 8 players to survive. Sort of, what's the end game scenario that, or describe the end game scenario in which you survive?
Okay, so the end game scenario, if they're alive up to this point, Matt and Jessica, the 2 side characters who have been separated from the group, have their own little escape getaway, and then they will be marked safe if they survive that last sequence. Then all the other characters, so Mike, Chris, Sam, Emily, and Ashley, are in the house. And as they're on their way out, the Wendigos have them cornered in the foyer. So there are 3 Wendigos in that room, and then as Sam and Mike, they notice that there is a gas leak essentially, and you have to go through this plan of getting over to a light bulb, breaking it, throwing the switch, and setting the house on fire. You have to do this in such a way, it'll keep prompting you to make decisions and to hold the controller skill so the Wendigos don't see you, because their movement is their vision is movement based.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like a T-Rex in Jurassic Park. And if you blow the switch too early, everyone who's left in the house will die. So you have to wait, you have to make decisions and avoid the monsters in such a way that everyone gets a chance to run for the door. And once you're free to do that, Sam will throw the switch on her way out, and everyone gets out. If you fail to do this, or if you fail one of the movement checks, Sam gets killed. If you make the wrong decision, like if you run for the switch too early, they could get caught in the blaze. Or one of the Wendigos will catch Ashley or Emily going for the door, and they will get their death animation will play out.
So a lot of the decisions, not all of them, but several of the ones that determine whether you get everyone out are in this final scenario. Like you could go from 8 to 2 or 8 to 0 in this final scenario potentially.
Pretty much, yeah. So anyone who has already survived up to this point could potentially get killed in this scenario. And if everyone is dead, and Mike has to go for and Mike has to, then Mike dies too, because he has a lighter on him, and he will ignite the gas himself and blow himself up with all the Wendigos, and that's the no survivor ending. Meanwhile, Josh's fate is actually sealed earlier on. Either if you find enough information, if you don't find enough information on Hannah, she will kill him on the spot. But if you do find all the clues about her, she ends up dragging him away. And in the final scene, they show a shot of him eating something and then looking into the camera with fangs, and he's a Wendigo now.
Oh man! So that's almost the end credit scene or the post credit scene where in a potential sequel, Josh could be the Wendigo chasing everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. But that's the main scenario. So you can either stall long enough to get everybody out during that final segment, and also have made the correct decisions for Jessica, Matt, and Josh, or you did not make the right decisions for some of them along the way, and some of them will get out. Everyone who survives has a few lines of dialogue in the end credits. And then, or you just really royally screwed up and nobody makes it out alive.
Well, all right. That seems dramatic as hell. I might have to watch a video of that or something. But
it's a pretty tense sequence. Oh yeah, I'm reasonably confident that Mike and Sam cannot die in the main game until that final sequence, because it really is kind of requires them both to be there. But everyone else is fair game.
Right on. So that was most of Until Dawn. A slasher horror decision-based game that had enough decisions and enough storytelling that we decided to cover it for the website. As we mentioned before, we have a review and an archived Twitch stream of Until Dawn on RPG Fan. But I want to talk about the future of Until Dawn a little bit. There was a semi-sequel that I think was on PS4 VR. And but we didn't cover that. I don't know much about it. And the game that developed Until Dawn, Supermassive Games, has had a couple follow-ups in the sort of murder drama genre, if that is a genre. They had a pretty interesting game in 2017 called Hidden Agenda, which was a sort of detective serial killer game where things can go well, which is also very heavily decision based, and things can go very well or very poorly for your character based on your investigation and your decisions. And also had a multiplayer component where while you were trying to solve a mystery, you could sabotage the other players or try to complete a secret mission separate from the other players, which was well received for its multiplayer ideas, but less well received than Until Dawn for its storytelling and decision stuff. But still, at least looks interesting. And I think that was also a PS4 exclusive. But most recently, Supermassive Games, which is a UK company, I don't know if that's important or not, they worked on a new thing that is it's not out yet. It's called Man of Medan, and it's the first game in an anthology series that they're working on called The Dark Pictures. And they're no longer Sony exclusive. This is going to be on Windows, PS4, and Xbox. Mm-hmm. And it's meant to be an anthology series. So they're going to have a game that is probably smaller than Until Dawn and probably not as big budget as Until Dawn, but release a new one of them every year, or perhaps even two a year.
It sounds ambitious.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't have it doesn't have quite as much money to throw around, but
they're being published by Bandai Namco, which is not a small video game company, but this is but still this is very ambitious, and I think that the success of Man of Medan and the other Dark Pictures games will both sort of show us really how much of an elite studio Supermassive Games is, and also how much thirst the gaming audience has for these small to medium-sized horror dramas.
Yeah, I know. I'm definitely curious about it.
Yeah.
I do wish they'd come up with a better name than the Dark Pictures, because I'm just getting Dark Universe flashbacks.
Yeah, I don't think Dark Pictures or Man of Medan is as cool a title as Until Dawn, which is, Until Dawn, 2 words. They even say the title of the game of the game in the game, which I always find hilarious.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Yeah, and is very marketable. People understand the concept almost immediately. But Dark Pictures Man of Medan requires some explanation. Boy,
that sure was Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Yeah, no kidding. But anyway, it's another horror game, and Man of Medan is set on in the ocean. 6 people are trapped in a boat, and it turns out it's a ghosty boat.
So I love ghosty boats.
Ghosty boats is one of my favorite subgenres.
Is there going to be a gratuitous scene involving razor wire? Because if so, I am in.
Maybe. I don't know much about Man of Medan, and it comes out in a few months. It comes out on August 30th, so we don't have real information on it. But I don't know. Maybe it's something we could cover. It would at least be a discussion that we would have before asking for a code from Bandai Namco.
For sure. There are also a couple of Until Dawn VR side games that aren't really worth mentioning in much detail, but Rush of Blood is like a VR carnival ride that's Until Dawn themed. And then The Inpatient is a prequel set in the asylum.
In the sanatorium. Okay, yeah, that's cool. But I
heard it wasn't very good, but
right, and I heard that Hidden Agenda was sort of cooler ideas than execution. And wasn't as good as Until Dawn. So I like, if they can make a game as cool as Until Dawn, and make 1 or 2 of them a year for a few years in this Dark Pictures anthology, that seems like a tremendous accomplishment to me. I don't think it will be the success that Until Dawn was, because Until Dawn really owned the gaming discourse for about 2 weeks in 2015.
Yeah, no, when it was this, like, I know people were really skeptical about it leading up to release. I think it was in development for quite some time, and then when it came out, it was kind of this, like, bolt of lightning thing, and I wonder if they're gonna be able to capture that lightning again. Maybe it's wise that they're doing something smaller scale with Dark Pictures. But also, will it live up to expectations?
Again, it's a very, very capitalist move. Like, you have a major success, you want to have more major successes, so you try to replicate that success. Of course, you do that. You do that 10 times out of 10. But the problem is, I'm wondering what the audience demand is for more games like Until Dawn, and I sort of doubt that Until Dawn feels like lightning in a bottle to me. It was huge, and everyone was talking about it for a while in 2015. It was a big success. Like everyone deserves a raise for how well Until Dawn did.
Yeah.
But trying to recreate that in a horror genre anthology with probably less budget feels ambitious and more challenging, and I wouldn't bet on it being a huge success. I hope Man of Medan is good. I want all games to be good, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Until Dawn feels special and unique and perfect timing, and now everyone is streaming everything. And Until Dawn sort of came around at the perfect time for the younger medium of streaming video games to be a phenomenon. But still, of course, I'm interested in this. Like I mean, ghosty boats, decision based gameplay, murder ship, all of that. I want all of that. But I mean, they have an uncertain future.
With how much certain genres of horror found their niche with streaming and YouTube, like Five Nights at Freddy's still going strong. That was one of those cultural phenomenons that came and went, but is still going strong. If you in the background, like there are novels, there are new games, there are all that stuff. Maybe I'm hoping that Dark Pictures will find an audience still, and especially now that we don't have Telltale anymore for narrative adventure games.
My fear is that Supermassive will turn into Telltale. Telltale Telltale had a couple early successes, especially Walking Dead Season 1, and kept trying to recreate that success, and then they stretched themselves thin and ultimately collapsed very suddenly and unexpectedly. That feels like the nightmare scenario.
And now, because of bad rights management, you can't buy a lot of their games anymore, and more of them will be unavailable as time goes on, which is really sad.
Yeah, I'm terrified to clear my hard drive cache because I don't want to lose my copies of Batman and Walking Dead.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, this is off topic, but I do need to bring this up because this actually really kind of upsets me. Physical copies of a lot of those Telltale games are going to be near useless now because most of those were episode 1 on the disc with download vouchers for the rest of them.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, that's done. Like that business model in hindsight was so incredibly short-sighted.
That makes sense from a practicality standpoint because they can't load all 5 episodes on one disc until episode 5 comes out. Episode 5 probably isn't ready by the time episode 1 comes out.
It's basically a season pass in disc form. But
if the download's gone, then that disc is just chapter 1, and that chapter 1 might not even be playable if it needs some kind of digital handshake to work.
Yeah, oof. That's that's an uneasy. This makes me uneasy as far as the medium goes.
Well, for me, the obvious solution is I have to keep my 7-year-old desktop computer working forever. So that sounds great.
Just don't delete your games, kids. Just buy increasingly bigger hard drives.
Well, I am doing that, even without the fear of losing games that lose their licenses. But Until Dawn. Very, very interesting narrative game. Probably not an RPG, but definitely a cool version of storytelling that I think a couple episodes ago I was talking to Alana and we were mentioning that this episode was upcoming, and she said she thought Until Dawn was her favorite choice-based game. And those are strong words. This is a game where the choices are frequent and seem meaningful, and there's cool lore and cool plot. This is an almost ideal 10-hour experience.
100%.
It's like a long movie or a mini-series that you can play and be satisfied with and have some replay value to see the different endings or try to survive with all 8 characters. I think there's smart storytelling decisions in this game and just cool writing and cool visual effects. Like the motion capture felt really good in this game. You could you could like when in chapter 1, basically right before my game crashed, you could have Ashley show Matt the telescope or not, so Matt could see his girlfriend hugging her ex or not, and seeing like seeing Ashley uncertain about the telescope and seeing Matt react, because I had her give the telescope to Matt, and seeing Matt react to that, I'm like, This feels like acting in a video game. This isn't just programming or just there was nuance in these visuals that
Yeah,
that felt so impressive.
yeah, what they're able to convey with the actors feels genuine, and there's even a bunch of making of featurettes on the discs. So
That's
like,
awesome. Mm.
yeah, as you play it, you get making of videos, interviews with the cast, all that good stuff, and it's like it's great. It's great. It really is.
Yeah,
it feels like a lot of genuine love and effort went into making this.
This game lives in movie ideas, and for once, and not for once, but calling this game cinematic is a compliment and not making fun of a movie license game.
Yeah, this isn't the David Cage scenario where he's totally never seen Blade Runner.
Yeah,
this feels like a game made by artists who love what they're doing but also know what they're doing.
It's homage and celebration and not a blatant ripoff, and just a really cool game in general. I am so mad that my PS4 was not cooperating with me. I may try to. Even though I know most of how the game works out, I was eager to continue when I was in chapter 1. I'm like, oh man, I'm all right. I'm meeting all of these people. I know that any of them might die. That's exciting to me. I want to keep playing, and then my game crashed near the end of chapter 1, or what I think is near the end of chapter 1.
I do hope you get it working sometime, because it is really fun to play. And I know we're recording this in the middle of June, but especially around the Halloween season, I can see this being really fun to play with friends.
Oh yeah, I would love playing this over like a Halloween weekend or something. Because again, the game is 9 or 10 hours. You can beat it in a couple sittings.
Yeah, my girlfriend was making decisions with me for a couple sessions, and it was just a lot of fun.
I didn't do this, but I know several of my friends would play this at a party, and people were yelling from the couch like they were yelling at a horror movie. Do that, do this, not that. That seems like an excellent way to play. You can totally play this game cooperatively, and every part of that idea sounds great.
Yeah, then it's like my first. It really is like the best way to experience a lot of horror properties is in a group. It's like my first experience with My first experience with PT was trying to solve all the puzzles with 2 other bros and then screaming my head off when we got jumped. And I feel Until Dawn could definitely be a really fun experience.
Yeah, one of a small number of scenarios where I sort of welcome backseat gaming when it feels cooperative and not like one person's trying to take over from the player.
Hand me the input device.
This is a single player game that you can play as a pseudo multiplayer that I sort of love.
Yeah, 100%.
But all right, I mean, it sounded like we were really popular on this game and slightly worried but optimistic about The Dark Pictures: Man of Medan. But I think we were basically done talking about the past, present, and future of Until Dawn, and it's time to move into the future of Retro Encounter. Listeners, thank you so much for hanging out with Peter and I and talking about this game that I wish I could have played. But we have several exciting Retro Encounter episodes for you coming up. Next week, we're going to have a very negative episode that Peter, you and I have been part of planning for a few weeks. We're going to record it very soon. I'm really looking forward to see how that turns out. And following that, we're going to have episodes on Trials of Mana, a game that I'm really excited to play for the, 8th or 9th time.
I downloaded the collection the minute it was available.
I downloaded it. I was in Los Angeles without my Switch when it came out, but I downloaded it the hour I got back home, and I've already finished one playthrough of it. Again, it's a game I've been playing off and on for since the early 2000s, so 16 or 17 years, and I'm really, really glad that so many more people are discovering it and enjoying it, and I'm going to be super obnoxious during that podcast, you did this, huh? You could have done this. There's going to be a lot of that, and I apologize in advance, but I'm so glad that people are discovering this game that I've loved for a long time, and it's going to be, and I haven't replayed it in quite a few years, so this recent replay was very fun and nostalgic for me, but yes, we're having 2 episodes on Trials of Mana in July, and that means that our Wild Arms 3 episodes were pushed back, so don't worry, those will still happen, just probably in August or September, and not July. But listeners, if you want to contact us, the best way to do so is to email retro@rpgfan.com. I especially want to hear your input about episode ideas, because Peter, you were on a few of these, but we did episodes on video game-based movies and on an RPG villain. We had a special Kefka episode. We did a quiz show episode, and we did a revisited episode for an old, basically just re-examining a game we covered in the podcast years ago. If you listeners, if you have any podcast ideas in those categories or other things, I want to hear your ideas. And the only way I can know what you're thinking is if you contact us. So please email retro@rpgfan.com. or visit RPG Fans boards, or the Facebook page, or the Instagram, or Twitter, or our Discord server, or our Twitch streams, which go on almost every evening. There are also 2 other fine podcasts, Random Encounter and Rhythm Encounter. Both Peter and I have been on many of those. And you can review Random, Rhythm, or Retro Encounter on iTunes or Google Play or whatever you use to listen to podcasts. Please give all the feedback that you want to. But Peter, if a listener wants to get in touch with you directly, how do they do so?
If you want to reach out to me, you can do so at I Have Fury on Twitter. I'm there way too often. You can also find me, Peter T, at rpgfan.com if you want to reach out to me with any site-related inquiries.
Right, and listeners, if you want to reach me, the best way to do so is also Twitter. I am at The Real Monsoon most of the time, at Evoker for Dogs other times, and I'm Monsoon Mike on the RPG Fan Discord and Monsoon on the RPG Fan forums. Whew.
I feel like I just got chased by a wendigo.
Oh yeah. No, well, I've been hiding from a wendigo for this whole hour 30 minutes that we've been podcasting. But
oh jeez.
Yeah, fortunately they see by movement, so I am extremely stationary at this computer right now. But listeners, don't get eaten by a wendigo. Thank you. Good night and good luck.
And survive until dawn.
There ain't no one will be around to help you until dawn.
That's so good.
Yeah. Again, I wasn't kidding. I love it when they say the title of the movie or the game in the movie or the game. It's so silly.
It is one of my favorite tropes.
Yeah, it's so silly, and I love it every time.